Hello there, 7th graders. This is Mr. Kashi speaking. We are doing something a little bit different today. I'm just going to go through the lesson online here, and you'll be able to follow through on your own pace using your headset at your computer. And if you need any extra help, you can always raise your hand. I'll be there to help you out. But I'm going through the same thing just for a little bit of convenience for everybody. So today's lesson is on 11.6, using data to persuade. Okay, so there's different ways that many different companies may use data to persuade an opinion one way or another. You see this all the time in newspapers and magazines. I'm going to show you some things that you want to watch for when that data is being displayed. Okay, our first example is actually right in front of us right here. Okay, so this graph is showing the time spent on homework, time in minutes, and this is grade 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay, and this is a misleading graph, because if you were to take a look at it, at just the size of the bars that are there, the 4th grade bar is actually rather small, and the 7th grade bar is very, very large. Okay, but this is rather misleading, because if we were just to compare the bars, the 7th grade bar is at least 4 to 5 times larger than the 4th grade bar, which would mean that they spend 4 to 5 times longer on homework. Well, in actual time, they don't. A 4th grader would be 28 minutes, and a 7th grader would be 50 minutes. And obviously 50 is not 4 to 5 times larger than 28, as the graph suggests. So we can take that same data that is in that graph and make it look a lot more fair. Okay, so these two graphs down here are the exact same data, but they look a lot more fair. Okay, so this is this graph on the left is obviously we're starting at 0. The graph up here, we started at 25. It was rather misleading. Okay, but here we're starting at the same point, and then this is a little bit more fair of a representation. Okay, and to show a little bit more drastic change, you can kind of skip around. So if you want to start at 0 and then just skip up to 20 with this little squiggly mark like they do here, that's just fine as well. That is a little bit more fair, but the best graph for a fair representation of what the data is showing would be that one on the left. Okay, we're going to go through multiple examples like this, and you can take a look at a lot of magazines and newspapers, and you see them all the time on how they're actually trying to promote something. They're going to show that data in a way that does that. Okay, these are the three things that you want to look out for. Okay, 3 methods of misleading graphs. One would be a misleading scale. Another one would be a misleading interval, and the third one would be misleading data measures. Okay, that data measures would be like which one you would choose, whether it's the median or the average or the mean or whatever it is. Okay, so choosing that data measure is a way of misleading as well. I will show you an example of these 3, and we'll be moving on to our homework there after that. So misleading scale, just like we talked about before, like our first example. This is bowling averages, and these are their scores up on the left, and then these are the scores of those individuals right there. So if we were to take a look at this person's bar right there, and then we look here, Emily's score looks to be, just by looking at the bars, would look to be at least 3 times as large as Hilda's there. Okay, 3 times as many points. If you're just to look at the bar, you would think that Emily would have 3 times as many points, when in all reality, here we have probably 113, and Emily has probably 127. And obviously 127 is not 3 times as large as 113. So the scale there is rather misleading. We would need a scale that needs to start at 0 down here with a little squiggly to make sure that this is a fair representation of that data. Now I'm sure this is probably a graph that was made by Emily to try and persuade how much better of a bowler she is compared to the other two, but I'm hoping that you guys can see how this is a misleading graph, that this bar is way out of proportion to compared to these to this other bar, because really their scores are not that far off, about 14 points there. Okay, so that would be an example of a misleading scale where it doesn't start at 0. It's not really fair. This is an example of a misleading interval. Okay, misleading interval. Now, if you take a look, this is a graph on profit or money, and this is the amount of money in hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then across the bottom here we have years, and it seems to be a rather steady growth, which is good. Now the only problem is the interval in between these points, because in between 0 and 5, well, that's a 5-year span, and well, in between these two, that's a 10-year span, and in between that's even bigger, that's a 15-year span. So if you wanted to actually do an overall an actual fair representation of this graph, it would actually look something that looks like this. It would kind of even out. It would start really good and then even out that way. But obviously that company doesn't want to show that they aren't growing as much as they did, and so they switched the to show how the intervals were there, and so it looked like it was a steady growth throughout the whole time. Okay, so this would be a misleading interval on how somebody would actually look like they're doing a lot better than they really are. And finally, misleading data measures. This is a good problem to talk about here. So this is a multiple choice problem. If you were to survey students in your class to find the number of pets per student, which some of you are actually doing, the results are shown. You want to convince your parents to let you have 4 pets. Which measure of the data should you use? So this is how many pets you have. That you asked 18 students, and this is how many pets. Okay, and then they're saying if you want to convince your parents that you want 4 pets right there, which one, mean, median, mode, or range, should you choose? Okay, so these are all the results. There's 3 people that have 0, there's 6 people that have 1, so on and so forth. Okay, so I'm going to talk about mode first. Mode is the easiest one to see with this type of data. Okay, mode, obviously 1 is represented the most. So if there's, but if you go to your parents and say the students in my class have 1, they're not going to let you have 4. So mode would not be a good way to tell your parents about. Now range is probably the next easiest. Range, well, the most is 27. And the least is 0, so the range would actually be 27 minus 0. But if you go to your parents that say that everybody in your class has 27 pets, they're probably not going to buy it. So range probably isn't the best idea either. Okay, that leaves us with median and mean. And our median right there would be halfway in between 1 and 2, which would be 1.5. But if you tell your parents, well, they have 1.5 pets, 4 pets would seem a little steep. Median would not be the way to go. And finally, we're left with mean, and not just due to process of elimination, but if we were to find the mean of all of these numbers, if you were to add up all the zeros, all the 1s, 2s, 3, 4, 7, 15, and 27, you'd come up with a number of 68 total. If you take that 68 and divide it by the 18 students that there are, you get 3.7 repeating, or about 4 pets per student. Okay, so if you were to find the mean or the average of that data, you would say, hey, well, there's about 4 pets per student in my class. So I would be an average student in my class if I had 4 pets. So we took the same data for all 4 different things, and they tell us something different about that data. So how you choose to present your data is another way of misleading that data. And in this case, if you were wanted to persuade your parents to do 4 pets, the mean would probably be the most realistic and the best way of doing that. Okay, so those are 3 different ways of misleading data. Hopefully this was helpful, and your homework is right here. It is starting on page 562. There are no $50 problems today. There's one problem. Problem number 5 is $100. Problems 6 through 18 are $200, and problems 19 and 20 are $300, and the amount due today is $2,000, due at the beginning of class tomorrow. Okay, you might want to pause the screen on this right here so you can copy that down. Make sure you do those problems for your homework. Remember, the top 3 will be having a movie with me later on this year. Okay, if you have any questions on this lesson, just let me know. I should be able to clear up any questions that you have. Other than that, have a good rest of the day and keep your stick on the ice.